Hello and welcome back to CADvent 2024, 24 days of festive design in Autodesk Fusion in the lead up to Christmas. For today, day 20, we are designing a star tealight background. I've printed a miniature version of what we're going to do today, but we'll design this for what will fit on most standard 3D printers. My name's Elizabeth Bishop and you can find me on my social medias at 3dbish. So let's jump into Fusion and get started. So starting off with a new component, this is going to be the star, the main shape of the design. And I'm going to start off by creating a sketch on my XY plane. I'm going to use a polygon to help define my star. So the first thing I'm going to do is click Tab and change that to 5. And then the size of this will really depend on your 3D printer. So we'll go with 60 millimeters for this one. And I'm going to add a horizontal and vertical constraint to that there. Now I'm going to select all of these lines and change them to construction lines. I'm then going to use the line tool and draw points to points of the star design. Now I could leave it like this, but I've actually found that it looks a bit better with a slightly different angle. So again, I'm going to set all of those to construction lines and then draw a new line. So from this point up to the center and then down to here, making sure that this is horizontal and vertical to this point here, and then adding a dimension of 120 degrees here. I'm then going to do a circular pattern. So grab those two lines and around the center point, and I want to have 5 of these. And that gives me my outline for the star shape that I want to create. Now that I've got that, I'm going to extrude this upwards by 50 millimeters. Now, if you're doing a miniature version, you can do this slightly smaller at 40 millimeters. What you need to do is get your LED tea light, measure the diameter of the tea light, and you need to do your extrusion at least as big as your tea light diameter. So these are about 35, I think, and you need to, so if you do 40 for those, but we'll design this one at 50. I'm then going to add in some fillets. So all of the points, so grabbing each of those 5 edges, I'm going to add a 5 millimeter fillet for those. And then all of my internal points of the star, so there should be 5 of those. I just click the plus to add in an extra operation into the same fillet operation. And I'm going to do those ones as 10 millimeters. Going back to my home view there. I'm then going to create a shell. So shelling this from here, and I want this to be 1.2 millimeters internal shell. And that's because for my 3D printer, that will be 3 extrusion widths on the wall. Now you could do it smaller if you only want to do 2, and that'll let a little bit of more light through the design. So we're going to do that shell down 1.2, and that is for 3 extrusion widths on a 3D printer, but you could change that to what you wanted. So I'm then going to add in the shelf for the candle and tea light to sit on. So I'm doing a sketch on the internal surface of the design there. I'm going to project through the bottom curve. So project, and that's the P on the keyboard. I'm just going to grab that line there and click OK. I'm then going to create a construction line, so line and X, and bring that up to the center point there. I'm then going to draw a rectangle, not a construction rectangle, but just a normal rectangle. And the dimension of this line is going to be 42. You want it just a little bit bigger than the diameter of your tea light. I'm then going to use a midpoint constraint down to that line that I've done there. And I want to do this at 1.2 for my 3D printer. That will be 3 extrusion width lines. And then going to add in a 1.2 by 1.2 rectangle there, and the same on the other side. So 1.2 by 1.2, and finish that sketch. I'm then going to extrude that profile. So grabbing those 3 points, and my distance type is going to be to object. So I want it to come to the top surface of this. Now, if you're struggling to select the surface, if you press and hold the left mouse button, you can hover over the different options. So I want that first one, face there. And I want my operation to be join in this case. So I want to join it to the existing body. And that there is going to be the shelf that the tealight sits on. So now we want to do our design. So I'm going to flip this round to the surface here, and I'm going to create a sketch on this surface. Now, there's various different things that you could do. You could do a pattern of sun and stars. You could do loads of little stars in the design. You could bring in the snowflake design from CADvent in day 1 when we did the snowflake cookie cutter and bring that into this design to use for that. Or you could insert an SVG. So there's loads of free SVGs available online, or you could go and buy an SVG. And to do that, you're going to click Insert, SVG, Insert from my computer, and then select your SVG file from your computer and bring that in. Now you want to zoom out because your SVG might be much bigger than the design that you're working on. And then just manipulate this round before you've finished inserting to a location that you want it to be on the design. So I'm thinking this is probably going to be 0.2 maybe, and move it round until it sits in the design where you want it to be. So I think that looks quite good like that. Now I've selected this SVG and I'll be able to extrude these surfaces through my design. But I want to add in a little, I think I'm going to add in the snowflakes from that day 1 CADvent. So if you open up day 1 snowflake cookie cutter, what I'm going to do is create a sketch on this bottom surface. I'm not going to project anything through at all. I'm just going to click finish sketch. Now, if I view that final sketch, you can see that there's actually geometry in that. So I'm going to go edit sketch. I'm just going to select the whole design, Control C for copy, come back to my star tealight, and I'm going to Control V that into this sketch. Now I'm going to move it over here just so I can scale this down in the design. So I'm going to select everything on the snowflake there, and I'm going to do modify and sketch scale, and I'm going to modify that around the central point. So I want to do that around the point there, and then just scale that down until it's the size that you want to use in your design. So I'm probably going to go for 0.4. So if I select all of those points, I can click modify and move, and then you can just move the design onto the area you want it to be in here. Now I've maybe done this slightly too big, so I'm going to scale it down again slightly before I do the move. So just selecting those again, modify sketch scale, and I want to go around that central point and just a little bit smaller, and then move those back into the position that I want them to be in this design. Now you don't want to go too close to the edge, so something like that, and I'm going to finish the sketch and then going to do an extruded cut. So extruding that profile, the reindeer and sleigh design that I've downloaded. Now I want to make sure I select these internal parts, otherwise I'll end up with multiple bodies on the design. Now this SVG maybe isn't quite perfect. I think the legs are maybe a little bit thin, but you can look around and maybe buy one that you are happier with. So my distance on the extrude is going to be to object. I'm going to turn around and select that internal face, and I want to do a cut operation for that. So clicking OK, and there we go. We have an initial design that we could do there, and I could have done a slightly smaller snowflake over here. So if I want to change that, I can go back in and edit the sketch and just select all of the snowflake profiles there, modify, move copy. And in this case, I'm going to create a copy. So I'm going to tick that create copy box, and then just bring that down into the lower portion of the design there. And again, you could scale that one if you wanted to. I haven't grabbed that top line, but actually I don't need it for the extruded cut that I'm doing for this design. So edit that extrusion, and then include that profile in the extruded cut and click OK. Now, in order for this design to work really well with the light, we want to make sure that our front face is really quite thin. So at the moment, I've got this as 1.2 millimeters. Now, depending on the layer height that you're using in your 3D printer, you probably want something less than 1 millimeter for this. So you could do something like 0.6 or 0.5 millimeters. So to edit that rather than the whole shell, I'm going to create an extrusion. I'm going to select this profile, and then I want to change my extent this type to object. I'm going to select the front face, and then I'm going to set an offset from that front face. So my offset is going to be negative 0.6. And we can check that is cutting what we expect to and leaving what we need. So clicking OK. I can then check the thickness of that design. So inspecting that from there to there, and we can see we have a distance of 0.6, which is going to print in a better way than we did before. So all that's left to do with this design is to save your STL file out, load that up in your 3D printer, and you're going to print that from a flat orientation. So if you're doing this in a bamboo, for example, you could select that surface and you want to print the design like this. So this is a slightly smaller version of the design, and you can slice that up and 3D print it. Now, if you wanted to see how this would look with a tealight, you could design your tealight in a separate file and then insert the tealight into your design. You can then position this into place. So I'm going to use a joint to do this. So assemble and joint. I'm going to select the bottom surface of my tealight, and I'm going to select the bottom ledge in the star there. And there you can see I've got those two components in the design, and you could start to add appearances to see how this would look in the render workspace with your design. So there we go, a festive star-shaped tealight decoration for CADvent Day 20. If you've got any questions, please do post them in the comments section below. If you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up and let me know what you'd like me to do for the rest of CADvent 2024. I'll see you in the next video.